Breathe easy.
The State Department out with its annual Trafficking in Persons report. Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying trafficking is a problem that no nation can solve alone.
More than ever, we have to work not only with governments, but along with the private sector, civil society, multinational organizations, citizens and survivors who understand the complex challenge and how we can confront it, and they know this better than anyone.
An Oklahoma father back home after facing gun charges in Turks and Caicos for ammunition found in his luggage. He says it was inadvertently left there after a hunting trip.
Ryan Watson tells ABC's Good Morning America his wife was the family's rock while he was detained for 2 months in Turks and Caicos.
She's handled our kids going through the toughest emotional time imaginable. With such grace.
He said she's the best thing that's ever happened to our family. Watson's back home in Oklahoma. He was fined $2,000, but avoided the up to 12 years in prison he faced after ammunition was found in his luggage. Brian Clark, ABC News.
A federal judge today sentenced the leader of a notorious Haitian gang to 35 years in prison for weapons smuggling and the laundering ransoms paid for kidnapped U.S. citizens. Jermaine Joly has pleaded guilty to charges related to the kidnapping of 16 Americans in 2021. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
Angie's List is now Angie, and we've heard a lot of theories about why.
I thought it was an eco move. Fewer words, less paper.
No, it was so you could say it faster.
No, it's to be more iconic.
Must be a tech thing. But those aren't quite right. It's because now you can compare upfront prices, book a service instantly, and even get your project handled from start to finish.
Sounds easy.
It is, and it makes us so much more than just a list. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
Bell Medical is so excited to announce we won Best of State. With so many awards and industry-leading board-certified plastic surgeons, you can be confident you're partnering with the best in weight loss and awake lipo. Right now until the end of the month, you can get a Bell Sculpt 360 procedure starting at just $42.50 or a mommy makeover at $52.50. Our best of sell ever. We're so confident in our results, we offer our Bell Guarantee, 2 to 5 inches of fat loss after just one treatment. Book your consultation today to lock in your savings at bellmedical.com.
I'm Gil Walter, KBNU News. News brought to you by Logan Extermination. A 42-year-old Logan man has admitted to raping, sexually assaulting, and setting up cameras to secretly record and stalk a woman, according to court documents. Aaron Hartzell Norton has been in the Cache County Jail since being arrested in December 2022. Court records show Norton appeared in Logan's First District Court for a final pretrial conference June 10th. He accepted a plea deal in 2 cases, pleading guilty to rape and 2 counts of attempted forcible sodomy, amended to second-degree felonies, stalking and criminal mischief, amended to third-degree felonies, and 2 counts of voyeurism, amended to a Class A misdemeanor. As part of the resolution, prosecutors agreed to dismiss 9 remaining charges without prejudice. A 5-day jury trial scheduled to begin July 29th was also canceled. According to prosecutors, Cache County Sheriff's deputies were called to a Nibley residence in December 2022 after the homeowner reportedly found a hidden camera in a power outlet. Another device was located in her bedroom, pointing at her bathroom. The victim claimed how Norton, who she had previously been in a relationship with, had been stalking her the past 2 months. He would use the location data from her cell phone to track her movements. The woman told deputies how Norton asked to pick up some belongings in November 2022, but then stayed for 3.5 hours. During that time, he reportedly bugged the house. Following Norton's arrest, deputies attempted to question him, but he refused and requested an attorney. During the court hearing June 10th, Judge Angela Fonsbeck accepted Norton's plea. She also scheduled sentencing for July 15th. Norton remains in jail, being held without bail. He could face up to 15 years in prison at sentencing. Fire crews were on scene after a large garage became engulfed in flames near Highland, Utah. Jack Beck, deputy chief at Lone Peak Fire District, said crews were dispatched at about 6:45 Sunday night. Initial reports stated the house had caught fire. However, Beck said as crews arrived, they found the fire to be mostly confined to the exterior garage. He said it was quite a large garage with quite a bit of fire, but they were able to keep it out of the house. The residents were inside at the time of the fire and were reportedly notified of the flames by neighbors. The family made it out safely, according to Beck. Lone Peak, Highland, Alpine, American Fork, and Lehigh stations all assisted, and according to Beck, were to remain at the scene throughout the night, as the cause is now being investigated for that fire. KVNU weather brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry, located at 5th East, 9th North in Logan, also 1st East and 7th South in Brigham City. Mount Logan Laundry. Heat advisory in effect until 11 o'clock Tuesday night for the Cache Valley. Mostly clear tonight, low overnight in the upper 50s, and then sunny, hot upper 90s on Tuesday. But then by Wednesday, it's still going to be hot, but a slight chance of a shower or thunderstorm in the afternoon, about 20% chance on Wednesday. Get more news at CacheValleyDaily.com.
With summer here, our beautiful lawns face a new threat. It's a threat you can't see because it's happening below the grass level, at the roots. Those nasty bill bugs and grubs are beginning to hatch and they are hungry. Your lawn is a smorgasbord to them and they can't wait to belly up to the table. Get a jump on those bugs by calling Logan Extermination today. They'll apply a custom spray for bugs and also fertilize to keep weeds under control and your grass growing tall. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
Breaking news and stimulating talk. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Paid for by Lyman for Utah.
I really just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to everybody that's worked so hard on this campaign. Thank you to the volunteers, to the donors, people that have put up signs, people that have been out talking to their neighbors. It's been so great. I really believe that Utah is about to see unspeakable good. We are really, really close in the polls right now. If you turn out, if you'll come out and vote, if you'll get a friend to go with you, we're about to see one of the biggest upsets in Utah's political history, and I really want you to be part of it.
I'm Phil Lyman, and I approve this message.
Today's hearing aid technology can improve not only your life, but the lives of the people who care about you. Once again, you'll be able to hear the reason for their laughter and understand conversations. Dr. Paul Danes will customize a hearing improvement program to meet your unique requirements, whatever they are. Call Dr. Danes for an appointment at 753-HERE and let him show you how.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Tuesday edition, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. We are only, believe it or not, 2 days away from the first presidential debate of 2024. Unprecedented for it to be this early. We will break down all the latest for you. Come hang with us. Tuesday edition, Clay and Buck, debate season almost here. You won't want to miss it.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show, Monday, June 24th, 5:12 in the afternoon. Beautiful outside, a little warm out there. I'm in the air conditioning, so I'm feeling pretty good here. Quick announcement. We are involved with this the last few years in a row, and it's been really fun to watch this play out, but Best of Northern Utah 2024 magazines are out there. You can pick them up at a few different places. Lee's Marketplace in both Richmond and Logan locations, Al Sporting Goods, Sports Academy, Johnny O. Spud Nuts, Smithfield Implement, Beehive Grill, both Cathay Sabor locations in Logan and Bear Lake, Ridley's Market out in Hiram, Old Gristmill, South Logan, Logan River Golf Course, Kent's Market, Firehouse Pizza, both Logan and Brigham City, the Book Table, New Horizons, Beauty College, El Salvador, Los Primos, and here at the Cache Valley Media Group. We had, in this year's competition for the Best of Northern Utah, we had more than 1,500 businesses were nominated. For those not familiar with this process, there's a 90-day period where you can nominate businesses in your local area. Then there's a 90-day period where everybody gets to vote. And then when all that is done, the votes are tallied and the magazine printing begins. The website, bestofnorthernutah.com, will be live Wednesday around noon. I'm looking at it right now. I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody, but 291 winners this year. And again, this is all community voting, but categories from cookies to coffee houses, craft beer, desserts, best frozen yogurt or custard in Northern Utah, catering services, equipment rental and sales. I mean, it's a really fun thing to see happen every year. And I'm looking at this nice glossy Best of Northern Utah 2024 comprehensive guide right here in my hands. But you can get out there and pick them up at any of those locations. Again, the website goes live Wednesday after the official announcements are made of the winners. We're having an open house here for the winners this week as well at the Cache Valley Media Group. And then the website will go up around Wednesday at noon, bestofnorthernutah.com. But you can pick up the printed magazines now. I'm told they're already out there at those locations. So kind of a fun thing to do. They do one of these in southern Utah as well. And I haven't ever seen one of those to see which businesses are winning. But it's kind of fun to get the community involved in that. So check them out. And we're happy to be involved as promoters each and every year. So our pleasure to be a part of this. But those printed magazines are out there. Website will be live Wednesday at noon. And you can see the best place for your, I'm going to flip to a random page in the catalog here. You can see the best place for a best fence company, best fireplace installation company, best real estate agent, best gym and hair salon, best recovery and treatment center, best yoga or Pilates location, best pharmacy, best, it's got everything, best bicycle shop. It's cool stuff. So check it out. Best of Northern Utah catalogs are out there, and the website will go live, I'm told, around noon on Wednesday, bestofnorthernutah.com. So this is a question that comes up every election cycle. And I've read some about it, and I know that, the research is not at all comprehensive. But I was reminded of this again today because there was a state senator not from our area. It wasn't Chris Wilson. This was a state senator from the Salt Lake area. And he said so there have been a lot of complaints. There's one campaign that, and I've seen this a little bit around Cache Valley. There's one campaign whose volunteers, and apparently this is statewide for this campaign, seem to either not be aware of or are intentionally ignoring some of the law around sign placement. You're not allowed to hang them over the freeway. This same candidate, his supporters actually posted video of themselves doing this once, and many people said, well, that's a first, a candidate actually uploading the video themselves of them breaking the law. The rules aren't exactly strict, but it's basically this. For your campaign signs, if it's a private property, you have to have permission. That's a no-brainer. And if it's public property, just don't. And every year, there are a bunch of campaigns that ignore this for a little while. But this year seems a little bit worse. In fact, I passed one on the way to the station today from this same campaign. And I thought, it makes your candidate look bad when you put a sign in a way that's going to put up a sign in a place or in a way, post it in a way, hang it in a way that's just going to irritate people, because everyone that drives past it knows you didn't get permission to do that. So I don't know why volunteers do this kind of thing, but it happens every year, and this year seems to be a little bit worse around this one campaign. So, but state senator out of Salt Lake said, in reaction to some of the reporting on this, because people have been complaining, I guess, about the sign placement from this campaign, and the state senator said, he's not up for re-election this year, but he said, in my next re-election cycle, I'm going to talk to my opponent and see if we can both, agree to do a signless campaign, because they're just, eye pollution, I think is how he put it. Nobody likes looking at them. Some of them are designed well, many are not, and it's just unpleasant and annoying. And when I read that, I thought, no, don't do that. A few years ago, you might remember in municipal races, there were several candidates that agreed to not put out any signs originally they weren't going to put signs out at all. And then a political scientist at USU said, no, campaign signs remind people there's an election going on. It increases turnout. And so they agreed, okay, we'll put them out, but we're not going to put them out till September. I personally, if campaign signs super upset you, I kind of feel like that's your problem, not the candidates. But at the same time, I don't know that it's worth all the effort these campaigns still put into them. And I'm not saying it is or isn't. I don't know. So I did some calling. I asked around, and I was sent a whole bunch of stuff. Apparently, there's been research on this at Utah State University, at the University of Utah, at BYU, at Dixie Tech. They have looked into this, trying to answer the same question. Are they worth the campaign's time and money? Do they have an impact? Yeah, but you're going to be surprised. And again, this isn't conclusive. It's extremely hard to study something like this. But if you're even loosely familiar with marketing, you'll know, we do this. When you hear ads here on our broadcast, you might hear, say you hear a catchy ad with a jingle for a plumber. And maybe that jingle even eventually starts getting on your nerves a little bit. We've all had that experience, right? That's successful marketing. Why? Because the goal of that advertisement isn't to have you driving along, headed home from work and hear a commercial for a plumber and think, well, I'm going to call that plumber. No, that's not the goal. The goal of that marketing for that plumber is that the next time a pipe breaks in your house or your basement floods or there's an issue with a clog or a washing machine isn't draining, whatever it might be, and you need a plumber, something we don't need, any of us, on a daily basis, you are going to remember that plumber's commercial. Even if it irritated you a little bit, you are going to remember it. That's how marketing works. That's how our brains work. And so there is a similar thing with campaign signs. Now, so the big question, is it worth the candidate's time? That isn't really answerable. It really depends on the campaign and the candidate. So if you're an underdog polling way behind in every poll, you've got nothing better to do with your money and time than everything. So why wouldn't you do campaign signs? They're relatively cheap. They're easy to put out. You need 10 volunteers in each county, and you've got the place plastered within a week with campaign signs. Why not? But recognize it's not going to make or break a campaign. On the flip side, you see this all the time. I'm seeing this right now in the gubernatorial race. People saying, I'm seeing nothing but X candidate sign, this candidate or that candidate. I'm seeing nothing but their signs. They're obviously going to win. Well, no. You could paint a town with campaign signs, and it does not seem to be correlated whatsoever with the outcome of the election. So, to answer that question again, is it worth the candidate's time and effort and money? Maybe. Depends on your race and who you are as a candidate and where you're at in the polls, if there are any. Your own internal campaign gauge on whether you're running ahead or behind. Those would all be factored in. But so the more interesting part of this is, how does all this campaign signage affect us? Does it change anyone's mind? Does it change a vote? Does it make anyone vote who wouldn't have otherwise? Maybe. So in a 2015 study, this was led by Professor Donald Green, a political science professor at Columbia University. They did one of the most comprehensive studies that had been done to date on political signage, and found that political signs can in fact make a difference in local races of 1 to 2 percentage points on average. Now, that's obviously in a United States Senate race or even a statewide race like the gubernatorial race, probably not going to make a difference in the general. In a primary, that could be the difference between winning and losing. So not earth-shattering, but in a close race, those signs might save your keister. There was another study, though. This was even more interesting to me. It's referred to as the Ben Griffin experiment. And this comes from, this study was organized and run by Cindy Kam, a professor at Vanderbilt University. She leads something called the Research on Individuals, Politics, and Society Lab. And she co-authored the study that resulted from this 2 cycles, so 4 years of research that she did, starting in 2011. And they're still doing this, by the way. This is an ongoing research project. Cindy Kam has moved on, but others have taken it over. But she wrote, after they took a look at this, so they had this fictitious, this is hilarious. They had this fictitious county council candidate, Ben Griffith. That's why it's called the Ben Griffin experiment. So Ben Griffin was not real. And his signs, though, were planted on lawns, well-trafficked sidewalks, streets, near schools, near arcades, near bars, everything they could think of. And then a survey was mailed out a few days later by the school's Parent-Teacher Association asking respondents to list their choices for the county's at-large council seats. So the Parent-Teacher Association said, hey, if the election were happening today, who would you vote for? And there were, in the survey, there were 5 real candidates and Ben Griffin, who, again, didn't exist. And then, as a control, they also put another made-up candidate's name, another candidate that didn't exist. Nearly 30% of respondents listed fictional candidate Ben Griffin. They didn't. So the other made-up name rules out the idea that they were just randomly checking dots. That's why they put that other made-up name in there. And then the made-up name of Ben Griffin associated with the signs that people were seeing for a few weeks. Nearly 30% of respondents listed fictional candidate Ben Griffin in their top 3 picks. He didn't exist. They had never met him, never heard from him, never seen a website, a tweet, a television or radio ad, none of that. But they'd seen his signs. And so when asked to list 3 candidates they preferred, he got included. He didn't exist. In the study, they concluded that in races where very little information is available, having some common sense name recognition, just having your name seen by someone, even if they aren't really conscious of having seen it, it's turned into background noise on their morning commute. Maybe they've passed it so many times, but if they're pressed to cast a vote or answer a survey question, and have no clue what any of the candidates are all about, they'll remember seeing that sign, and they'll remember that candidate's name. So it does have an effect on our brains, at least. Political consultant Matt Compton, who runs a company called Blue State, they support progressive causes and campaigns on the East Coast somewhere. And he said that their experience running some experiments themselves with political signage, what they found is that it's not just low information, low profile races. He cited some work his company did in the 2008 presidential primaries when both Republicans and Democrats had roughly 10 candidates. And remember that? It was a circus. Both major parties, 10 candidates, everybody fighting and screaming, trying to get the nomination, all at the same time. It was crowded. It was hectic. It was plastered. The media was loving it because they had a news story falling in their lap every 15 minutes from one of these candidates in one of these parties. But it had a tendency to kind of drive people away, to actually scare off the normies. And what they found is that in those races where people were actually inundated by ads and messages and a choice of candidates and just all this noise, you might believe this. I don't know. This might surprise you. It might not. It kind of surprised me. What they found is that a political sign designed well, pleasing to the eye, something that would be memorable, but also not really in your face and ugly. By the way, avoid yellows. in your campaign signage. That was an interesting aspect of this. Yellow apparently is a very unpleasant color for people to see on a sign, no matter what. It didn't shift anyone's vote away from their party of choice. No one voted for a Democrat if they've been a Republican their entire life, and vice versa. No one voted for a Republican if they've been a Democrat their entire life. But what they did find was that even in these high-profile races where there was so much noise, people started to check out before the primary elections or the caucuses, whatever your state was doing, happened. What they found is that the signage actually influenced votes. They found that candidates with pleasant, easy on the eye, and yet memorable signs fared better in these races among voters who claimed that they hadn't really plugged in until the days before. And they said that held up again and again, whether it was a municipal race or whether it was that 2008 presidential nominating contest. It's fascinating stuff. It gets a little bit into the psychology of each of us, how our brains work, but it goes way back, too. In this study, they also looked into, voting patterns. Ken Wuerls, president of a company called 3 Creative Communications, they work with Democrats and Republicans, conservatives, progressives. They said they're across the board. Their entire goal is to get more people engaged in the process. And they said what they found is that campaign signs served a really important purpose. They motivated staff and volunteers. He said way back in the 80s, he worked on a campaign, a Republican congressional candidate running for re-election, statewide or a district-wide race in Indiana. And he said that loyal campaign volunteers complained that they didn't do yard signs, and their volunteer drop-off was huge. He said that yard signs were great for volunteers and supporters in those slow times, keeping them busy. Hey, nothing to do for a few days here. Why don't you go place some signs? It created loyalty. It kept people busy. It made everyone feel like the campaign was nonstop, exciting, and that we were headed somewhere important. And that was an internal aspect, he said, attributed directly to yard signs. So all around, the conclusion is that yard signs do have an impact. It's just not at all what anyone thinks. The number of signs isn't getting anyone elected. That corner that's just chock full of every campaign sign out there, not changing a single mind or making anybody vote who isn't planning on it already. But it motivates the campaigns. It reminds voters there's an election happening, at least, which can increase turnout, again, 1% to 2%. And in a pinch, if someone's pressed in a survey or in a voting booth, well, we don't do those anymore, they might actually choose a candidate that had a pleasing sign. They didn't remember that they remembered passing on their morning commute every day. So, yeah, campaign signs absolutely have impact on the elections, just not what anyone thinks. It's a really, really cool set of research. I've linked to it on our Facebook page because there's much more about this. There was even a study done to show if voters were more likely to talk family members and friends into voting if they started to get kind of caught up in the excitement of the campaign from seeing so many yard signs. I mean, honestly, this was something that was documented in research over and over again. It's really cool stuff. I think, some people might be offended by the idea that we could be motivated by such a simple thing as passing a yard sign every day on our way to work and not even remembering we've done so. But that's kind of how all of marketing works and always has. So it makes sense that would hold up for political campaigns as well. Check it out. I've posted a link to the research that I've just kind of skimmed here with you if you'd like to read it in full. It's pretty fascinating. That's on our Facebook page. And we'll be back after this look at the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News brought to you by Roof Rescue. With minimal discussion or debate, members of the Logan Municipal Council voted themselves and Mayor Holly Daines a 3% pay increase at their regular meeting on June 18th. As required by law, the council held a hearing to solicit public comment on the pay raises, that is. Only regular council watcher Gail B. Yost rose to the occasion, pronouncing the council members to be well worth the proposed pay raise. Starting July 1st, Daines will be paid an annual salary of $122,094, up from $118,270, plus a $6,000 vehicle allowance, which was unchanged from the previous fiscal year. The salaries for council members will be $19,113, up from $18,555. Council members will also receive an annual $300 vehicle allowance for travel expenses incurred while on city business, also unchanged from previous year. June is National Immigrant Heritage Month, and advocates in Utah want to see a pathway to U.S. citizenship include easier access to public lands and waters for immigrants who take the oath of allegiance each year. Olivia Juarez is with Green Latinos, one of the 68 organizations that wrote a letter to federal land management agencies and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, calling for them to provide an America the Beautiful pass to newly naturalized citizens as a welcome gift. Juarez adds that advocates would also like agencies to consider barriers that cashless entry to national parks can have on unbanked individuals. Juarez contends those who complete the lengthy and at times complex naturalization process should be given an opportunity to connect with the lands that they have a right to.
There's the benefit, of course, like fomenting a population that cares about public lands and wants to make sure that they're healthy and here for future generations. But it also provides direct benefits in terms of public health.
Juarez says when people have access to clean, pristine, natural recreation areas, they also tend to have better physical and mental health. They add that Green Latinos would also like to see cooperative efforts to host swearing-in ceremonies on public land recreation sites to cultivate deeper, more meaningful connections with the landscape. Heat advisory in effect until 11 o'clock Tuesday night for the Cache Valley, also eastern Box Elder County. Mostly clear tonight is the forecast, low in the upper 50s, and then sunny, hot again tomorrow, upper 90s. Slight chance of a shower or thunderstorm, but still warm on Wednesday. Weather brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology for the best value of today's hearing aid technology. Get more news at CacheValleyDaily.com.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Severson. Breaking news, the Justice Department has reached an agreement with Julian Assange to plead guilty to a single felony count, according to court documents unsealed tonight. This over the WikiLeaks founder publishing classified U.S. documents in 2010. Hearings today in federal court in Florida on Donald Trump's handling of classified documents. The special counsel having a request, says ABC's Catherine Falders in Fort Pierce.
This is Jack Smith's request for a gag order so that Trump will stop speaking about law enforcement that were involved in the case. Jack Smith says that this is a threat to their life, that it could potentially be life-threatening down the road. So the judge will consider that request.
Hunter Biden trying to have his federal gun conviction overturned on a technicality, arguing the trial began before a circuit court formally denied his appeal. The Biden administration is expected to announce more military aid for Ukraine, according to a U.S. official. This is ABC News.
Roof Rescue is your local roofing specialist, dedicated to keeping your home safe and dry no matter the weather. Their team of experienced roofers is here to serve you, providing top quality service at affordable prices. From minor repairs to complete roof replacements, they've got you covered. Remember, your roof is your first line of defense in protecting your family from the elements. So don't wait until the next storm to discover your roof problems. Call Roof Rescue today at 435-999-4268. They're your trusted local roofing experts, here to keep your home safe and dry. Roof Rescue, celebrating 10 years of providing watertight peace of mind.
Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Cache Valley Cruising. Cache
Cache Valley's biggest summer party is almost here. The Cache Valley Cruise-In, July 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Cache County Fairground. This year, the Cruise-In is going Motown with the Commodore. And opening act, the Temptations Review, featuring the legacy of Dennis Edwards. This year, all seats are assigned. So buy your tickets now to ensure you get the best seats available. The giveaway car is a beautifully restored 1950 Ford F3 pickup. And your ticket to the car show is your chance to win the truck. 3 days of fun includes the annual poker run, Women's World, Top Rod of Utah, a sock hop, and more.
Cache Valley Cruising, Cache Valley Cruising.
July 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Cache County Fairgrounds.
Attention sports fans, you'll definitely want to be to this event. The Ultimate Sports Bash is coming July 12th and 13th to the Mountain America Expo Center in Sandy. Meet sports stars like Cam Rising, Brian Russell, Greg Ostertag, Nick Raimondo, and Jaron Hall. Check social media at Ultimate Sports Bash for all newly added athletes coming to the Bash. Get your tickets and reserve your photo ops and autograph sessions now at UltimateSportsBash.com. That's UltimateSportsBash.com.
Hello, I'm Brent Wallace, President and Commercial Loan Officer at Cache Valley Bank. I've spent 18 years in banking and I'm ready to share that expertise to help you meet your financial goals. I have a great team of bankers who are dedicated to providing you with the personalized attention you deserve. Come visit me at our main branch or give me a call and let me show you what opening an account with us can do for you. We look forward to meeting you. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Hello.
This is Jared Green.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I understand you work for Union Pacific. Is that right?
That is correct.
Well, someone told me a story about something that you did last winter. The crossing arms that go across Valley View Highway got stuck. You stood out in the middle of that snowstorm for over an hour, holding those booms up so that people could cross. Is that right?
Yeah, sounds about right.
We'd like to recognize you and give you $40 to Firehouse Subs.
Oh, great. I'm super.
The Above and Beyond Salute on News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Some fireworks over a recent proposal, well, set of proposals by the Utah Foundation. For those not familiar with the Utah Foundation, they're frequent guests here on our show, and this is an organization, a private organization, who makes it their business just to analyze things and write reports, mainly geared at lawmakers, policymakers, both at the state level, but also city council, county commissioners. Their goal is to improve things in Utah, and they realize that resources are finite. Not every county council member or city council member or even state lawmaker is going to have time or energy to understand every issue. And so they do these deep dives on everything from tax policy to housing with a goal of spotting trends. Like their mission statement says, they're not advocating for any specific policy or ideological lean. What they're trying to do is make sure that a trend, something headed in this direction or that direction, is not missed, because things get busy. And there are, legislative sessions where, for example, every lawmaker is working hard on their own bills, but then there are a couple of other bills that just somehow pop up and take up all the air in the room, and things can fall to the wayside. So the Utah Foundation tries to counter this by doing research, and it's fascinating stuff. Today it nearly started an all-out. I shouldn't say all-out, but it was the verbal equivalent of a massive street brawl after this research was published today. Why? Because some of their goals, everyone was excited about. Solutions to Utah's affordable housing crisis. The controversy came over some of the proposals, but it as they started to explain, it started to make sense. When I first heard about this, I did an audio double take. Like, what? Did I just hear that right? They are proposing what? But then after they explained, again, it started to make sense. But so this new report on Utah's housing crisis is breaking down all of the possible solutions. These are things that everyone agrees on. That these are possible solutions. But the Utah Foundation, in this report released today, took a look at this variety of solutions, and they explore each one to its most likely conclusion. So again, the goal here was to look at possible solutions to increase availability and supply of housing, a huge issue in Utah right now. It's not only making families homeless, literally, but it is also making it impossible for businesses to hire in a lot of areas. It is making it difficult for people to find a place to live if they want to move. There are so many. And then, of course, the prices. That's probably the way most people are feeling the impact, the prices right now that no one can afford. So the Utah Foundation dug into this and started asking questions like, okay, what would help? And what are some of the biggest challenges here in Utah? You can read the full report for yourself at utahfoundation.org. And I've invited them to join us here on our show as soon as we have our phone lines back. Again, for listeners, we are operating out of a temporary studio while they rebuild the KVNU studio. It's going to be new, fancy, flashy, so many more blinking lights. I'm looking at this new board right now, and wow, just really cool stuff. A vastly needed update in technology and more. It's going to allow us to make the show even more snappy and live in different ways. I'm excited about it, but it's going to be a bit of a pain here for a couple of weeks. And one of those pains is we currently don't have phone lines. I am keeping a close eye on the Google Hangouts chat. We're KVNU FTP there. You can also email, and I'll try and keep an eye on that inbox throughout the show as best I can. Email at kvnuftp@gmail.com. So, again, back to Utah Foundation. I've invited them on the show to talk about this in greater detail once we have those phone lines back. They're based in Salt Lake City, so unless they're willing to make the drive, I'm not going to be able to get them on here until our phone lines are back. But they've agreed as soon as we're able to do this because the report, again, made waves. And it's not super controversial. They didn't suggest anything like kicking people out or anything like that, but they did basically say that a lot of kind of trendy bandwagons that Utah state lawmakers have jumped on board with in recent years may have exacerbated things. And that, understandably, didn't go over well. Lawmakers have very thin skin sometimes. But what did they float that stirred up such a ruckus? The report floated tax policies like increasing owner and renter occupied housing. That's a goal, obviously, by creating a vacancy tax or vastly increasing vacant residential property rates to discourage letting something sit empty. You're going to pay a lot in taxes. It might be cheaper for you to rent it in the first place. That understandably was a very controversial suggestion. And again, this is the Utah Foundation. They lean conservative, but they're an independent. They're not telling lawmakers what to do, but they are a trusted source. They've never steered lawmakers astray before. And here they are saying, look, we're going to have to get creative. You might want to be looking at things like vacancy taxes. The second controversial thing they suggested to aid Utah's struggling housing market and the crisis around that was increasing short-term rental restrictions and enforcement to shore up long-term housing. So in recent years, lawmakers had kind of relaxed the rules around everything from rideshare companies to independent contractors operating through an app to restrictions on short-term rentals, Airbnbs, things like that. It was a very trendy thing to do there for the last 10 years or so, but it really hit it at a strong pace about 5 years ago here in Utah, and lawmakers couldn't jump on this bandwagon fast enough. You've all heard the phrase gig economy, right? That's what we were all calling it. It didn't come to be, but these are things that many people enjoy now. Ubers, Airbnbs, things like that. Well, lawmakers couldn't pull the restrictions back enough or fast enough on this. It was being touted as an economic revolution. Now, it wasn't, obviously. But that's the way it was being sold at the time, and lawmakers got caught up in that excitement. And Utah Foundation says some of those restrictions that were removed may have been harmful. Specifically, they made it far too easy, Utah Foundation says, for someone to operate short-term rentals in a way that is maybe predatory. But also they said it might actually incentivize people to turn something they could rent on a 6-month or even year lease basis into a short-term rental, because lawmakers have unintentionally incentivized exactly that. Now, that's great. You've got to have those short-term rentals for, something else we rely on a lot, tourism, right? A lot of tourists these days look for an Airbnb, not a hotel. And so you've got to have them. But a lot of these Airbnbs are also, and we're talking in the tens of thousands, Utah Foundation estimates, are also things that if it wasn't incentivized might be rented more long-term for a family to live in instead. So they're basically saying don't do away with it, but you've got things a little out of balance. So these were two very controversial suggestions that, one, will never pass as legislation in the Republican supermajority legislature. But it did start this really interesting conversation. And John Salivarakis of the Utah Foundation stepped up today to kind of explain themselves when he saw the controversy was happening. And he said a single solution or sector will prove insufficient to solve Utah's ongoing housing crisis. A coordinated effort of solutions varying in scale, scope, and focus. It's the only way we're getting out of this. And he said, we included everything in our report. So yes, these were two controversial ideas that had lawmakers all sorts of upset, because here they are being told by the Utah Foundation, a trusted source of analysis and information, that, hey, folks, you might have exacerbated the problem in housing in Utah, and you could fix that really easy. Well, that's not going to happen. The legislature doesn't like to admit mistakes, so they just ignore them. But there were some other things that the Utah Foundation put in their report that are interesting and not as controversial. Based on a recent legislative audit, lawmakers were told that continued emphasis on single-family homes is a, quote, recipe for trouble as Utah continues to grow. So the Utah Foundation said, in light of that audit, that same information that was presented to lawmakers earlier this year, encouraging construction density can improve homeowner affordability as height limits are increased or smaller lots are embraced in neighborhoods otherwise characterized by single or double level single family homes. So more 4, 5, 6, even 7, maybe 8-story buildings, more townhomes, more apartments, things like that. They have to be an increased focus, the Utah Foundation says. This was an interesting recommendation as well. In the Utah Foundation report, they say factory-built housing is being underutilized in Utah. It said that factory-built housing can be used to improve affordability as economies of scale reduce construction costs. Interestingly enough, during the legislative session this year, lawmakers passed a bill to set what was a building code for these modular factory-built homes. We never had one before, but the code basically makes it easier for the manufacturers to make them so that they can legally be built here in Utah. Every home doesn't need to be inspected and improved before someone buys it. Now, it has to be inspected for safety and all kinds of things before someone can live in it or a developer can sell it. But you could order, knowing the basics of building code, which we'd never had before for these prefab homes, could mean a lot more developers willing to order them and put them up So Utah Foundation also said tax policy is a huge disincentive here in Utah for housing. Their conclusion is tax policies could be used to discourage housing speculation, and right now they're being used to encourage housing speculation, and discouraging it would increase the supply of ownable and rentable housing. Everyone agrees on that. Utah Foundation also said that shared equity models and down payment assistance is going to have to be a part of Utah's future. To afford and get us out of this, it's going to take years, Utah Foundation analysts said, of increased homeowner affordability and allowing residents access to what they call the housing ladder, where someone gets into something cheap and maybe small, and then they slowly move up that ladder until they get into the home that they really wanted in the first place. The Utah legislature, they said, is going to have to dabble with something that they never really have before, which is a home buyer program. Right now, they did open up the $50 million first-time home buyer program, and that offers up to $20,000 in state-backed loans to eligible Utahns to buy their first home. But Utah Foundation said it's going to have to get much bigger than that, and it's going to have to include people who aren't first-time home buyers. People who want to upgrade are going to need some state-backed loan assistance as well. So finally, this is kind of a no-brainer, but they said one of the biggest holdups that is going to take both public messaging and community involvement and education and conversation and possibly years to really overcome is something that we've all heard as NIMBYism, not in my backyard. This is where someone says, yeah, I agree. You know, we don't want to kick our kids out of Cache Valley when they all turn 18 because there's nowhere to live. So there have to be apartments and townhomes and more houses and higher density, but I don't want it near me. But of course, if everyone says that, you don't have anywhere to put it. So Utah Foundation said that the state needs to do a much better job of public education and even maybe running ads to get people to think about this differently, to change attitudes towards higher density housing. The Utah Foundation report says NIMBY attitudes might be related to gaps in insurance product availability, which should inform municipal actions when advocating for certain housing policies. When it comes to the average resident of Utah, though, this is really going to take a public education campaign because the myths about more dense housing are prevalent. And finally, in the report, the Utah Foundation says various policy options can encourage condominium construction and help increase homeowner affordability. The report notes that condo construction is at historic lows here in Utah, and new construction is largely focused on renter-occupied condos rather than owner-occupied. The legislature suggests that literature suggests, Utah Foundation writes, that federal income tax laws encourage multifamily rental property development, apartments, over for sale units, condos and townhomes, due to the time and logistics required to take advantage of beneficial tax rules. So basically, state and federal tax policy is encouraging people to build with renting in mind as opposed to home apartments, as opposed to condos and townhomes in mind, ownership. But the Utah Foundation said with Utah's older population, the condo market should be huge in this state. And unfortunately, what you have instead is an incentive structure that's maybe keeping older couples in homes that are a bit too much for them to handle at that point because of the hurdles to moving into a townhome or a condo, and then also keeping that home occupied and making sure the townhome or the condo is never built in the first place. A recipe for disaster, Talvinakis says. Finally, the legislature largely focused on balancing cities' abilities to maintain control and regulate development, while at the same time kind of warning them, cities, that lawmakers were willing to run roughshod over them if needed to solve the housing crisis. The Utah Foundation, in their report, I was really glad to see this said, absolutely not under any circumstances should the legislature do this. Central planning for housing in a state with such a big gap between the urban and rural landscapes and cultures is just impossible. A rule that would work really well in Bountiful to solve housing issues is not going to work somewhere in Garfield County, and that should just be a no-brainer. So I'm really glad to see them include that in their report. If you'd like to read the report, I've linked to it on our Facebook page. and we'll be back right after this.
Here's what some of our patients have to say about how Red River has changed their lives.
So before I started at Red River, I was having a lot of stomach pain. I was overweight, severe anxiety. I had been to multiple doctors. We had done tests and no one could find anything that was wrong. And then a friend mentioned Red River and I went and saw him, and it has changed my whole life. I'm sleeping through the night. I have energy for my kids. I've lost 30 pounds. No more stomach pains. I just feel really good.
Our goal is to focus on imbalances that are driving your condition or symptoms, not just give you Band-Aid answers. So when a patient comes to our office, we'll sit down with them extensively and go over their blood work to find out the underlying imbalances driving their symptoms.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
When it comes to protecting yourself and your loved ones, you deserve the best. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance, an Alera Group company. We believe that obtaining life insurance should be affordable and worry-free. As an independent auto owners insurance agency, we work with top-notch carriers to find the best policy for your unique needs. You can rest assured that you're getting the best coverage and the best price. Quality First Insurance, 435-752-0101.
Thank you for tuning in. That is it for today's show. But I hope you'll be back with us tomorrow. Local Cache Valley resident, a young man by the name of Jaden Larson, is joining us tomorrow. Jaden, taking from his own experience, has become an advocate for both suicide prevention, but also awareness of the importance of having difficult conversations at the kitchen table with our parents, with our young people, and everyone involved. He says most of the resources here in Cache Valley, many people don't even know about, and they're great. He'll be with us to break it down tomorrow on